Under the sweltering heat of an Atlanta afternoon, a little black girl named Naomi Brooks spotted a leather wallet beneath a bus bench. Inside was more money than she'd ever seen. Crisp bills stacked like secrets. Her hands trembled. Her breath caught. For a long moment she just stared, unsure what to do. Then she made her choice. She took the bus downtown and returned it to its owner, a lonely billionaire named Elliot Harrington, who lived in a glass tower that scraped the sky. When he opened that wallet and realized not a single dollar was missing, he was speechless. What happened next would lead him straight to the girl's doorstep and uncover a truth neither of them would ever forget. It had started like any other summer morning on Atlanta's west side. Naomi walked slow along Baker Street, toes pushing at the splits in her too small sneakers, backpack bouncing against her narrow shoulders. The library card tucked in the front pocket was her prized possession. Not a phone, not a game. A card with her name on it and a barcode that opened the door to as many stories as her arms could carry. The air was thick and warm, smelling of cut grass, exhaust, and somebody's barbecue starting early. A box fan hummed in a second-story window. Somewhere, a dog barked and didn't stop. Naomi hugged her library books closer. The top one was about a girl detective, the kind of girl who noticed little things other people walked right past. Maybe that's why she saw it. The bus shelter at the corner looked the same as always. Scratched glass. A faded ad for a grocery store no one could afford. A metal bench scabbed with flaking paint. But something dark poked out from underneath, just by the front leg. Naomi slowed. It was a wallet. She glanced up and down the street. An old man in a Braves cap sat on his porch across the way, fanning himself with yesterday's mail. A teenager pushed a stroller. A MARTA bus roared past, rattling the shelter, then disappeared in a blur of white and blue. No one was looking for anything. No one was patting their pockets or turning in circles or shouting, "Hey, did somebody see my wallet?" Naomi's heart started to thump. She knelt, the concrete warm against her bare knees, and pulled the wallet free. The leather was smooth and soft, the color of coffee with cream. It felt expensive, the kind of thing her mother would admire and then put back on the shelf with a quiet, "Not this month, baby." For a moment, she just held it. The sounds of the street faded, replaced by the rushing in her ears. Then she opened it. The breath left her chest. Bills. Stacks of them. Thick, crisp, green. Not a couple of 20s, not the folded 5 her mama kept tucked in a jar for emergencies. Hundreds. Naomi counted under her breath, lips barely moving. 1, 2, 3. By the time she reached 1,000, her hands were shaking. There was more. Her throat tightened. $1,000. Maybe more. That was more than the red past-due bill on the kitchen table. More than the rent her mama whispered about late at night. More than the number on the pink paper that had been taped to their apartment door last week. The paper her mother had ripped down before the neighbors could see. For a second, Naomi saw it all as if someone had drawn it in the air in front of her. The white refrigerator with almost nothing on the shelves. The electric fan that coughed and rattled instead of a real air conditioner. Her mama, Tasha, sitting at the table in her fast food uniform, head in her hands whispering, "Lord, I'm doing the best I can. Help me stretch what I don't have." Naomi swallowed hard. The wallet felt heavy now. Heavy like it knew what it could fix. With this money, the fridge could be full. The pink paper might go away. Her mama's forehead might smooth out, just a little. All she had to do was close the wallet, slide it into her backpack, walk away. Her fingers curled around the leather. She could do it. Nobody had seen her. People walked past her every day without really looking. Just a little black girl with big braids and scuffed shoes, sitting at the bus stop like she'd been born there. No one would know. And then, as clear as if her mama were standing right behind her, Naomi heard Tasha's voice, "Baby girl, we don't touch what isn't ours." She remembered that night months ago when the clerk at the corner store handed back too much change. Tasha had counted the bills, frowned, and pushed the extra across the counter. "You gave me 10 too much," she'd said. The clerk had shrugged. "You sure you want to give it back?" "Times are hard." Tasha had met his eyes, tired but steady. "Time's been hard," she'd said. "But hard times don't give me a pass to turn into somebody I can't look at in the mirror." Later, as they walked home, Naomi had asked, "But Mama, we needed that money." Tasha had squeezed her hand. "We need food, yes. We need rent paid, yes. But most of all, we need our name. Once you start taking what's not yours, baby, you start losing yourself. And that's too high a price." On the hot sidewalk, Naomi felt tears sting her eyes. She looked down at the money one last time. At everything it could fix, at everything it could break. "Not ours," she whispered. Her hands moved on their own, fingers pulling the bills back into a neat stack. She tucked them deep into the wallet, then checked the other pockets. There it was, a thick card with raised letters, the kind she'd only seen on TV, Elliot Harrington. Harrington Skyline Group. There was a downtown address, a building name she'd seen from the highway, all glass and steel scraping at the clouds. Naomi stared at the card, then at the bus stop sign. A route map clung to the pole, sun-faded but still readable. One of those lines, the blue one, ran all the way from here to downtown. She had 2 wrinkled dollar bills in her pocket. Bus fare for the week if she walked home some days. Her stomach gave a small, hungry twist. She'd planned to buy a hot dog from the cart outside the library. Slowly, she folded her bus money in half. Lunch could wait. Doing right could not. Naomi slid the wallet into her backpack next to the books. She zipped it as far as it would go until the broken tooth caught. Then she pinned it shut with the safety pin her mama had added last month. She straightened up, wiped her sweaty palms on her shorts, and stepped toward the curb. The city bus rounded the corner a few minutes later, brakes squealing, doors folding open with a tired sigh. Naomi climbed aboard, dropped her dollars into the slot, and walked to a seat by the window. As the bus pulled away from her neighborhood, the cracked sidewalks, the brick row houses, the beauty shop on the corner with its sun-faded sign, she held her backpack tight against her chest. Outside, the scenery changed. Small stores gave way to bigger ones. The roads widened. The cars got shinier. Glass towers rose in the distance like silver fingers pointing at the sky. Naomi had never gone downtown by herself. Her heart beat so loud she could feel it in her ears. "Lord," she whispered under her breath just like she'd heard her mother do. "Please let me find this man. Please let him be kind." The bus rumbled on toward the heart of the city, carrying one small girl, one heavy wallet, and a decision that was about to knock on the door of a man who had more money than he could count and more loneliness than he could name. He just didn't know it yet. The city looked different from up close, bigger, louder, too many people in too much of a hurry. Naomi stepped off the bus clutching her backpack so tight her knuckles turned white. The Harrington Skyline building rose in front of her like a wall of mirrors. Its windows caught the sun and threw it back in 100 directions. The doors whooshed open when she stepped close. Cool air rushed out smelling like lemon polish and money. Naomi hesitated, her sneakers squeaking on the marble floor. She'd never been anywhere like this. Everything shined. Floors, walls, people. A woman in a navy suit glanced up from the front desk. "Can I help you, sweetheart?" the woman asked, her voice polite but puzzled. Naomi swallowed. I found this wallet. It says it belongs to Mr. Elliot Harrington." The woman blinked, surprised. Then she smiled gently. "Did you now? Well, that's very kind of you." She picked up the phone, murmured something, and hung up. "Security will take it upstairs, okay?" Naomi shook her head. "I'd like to give it to him myself." The woman's eyebrows rose. "Mr. Harrington's a very busy man, honey. He doesn't usually—" Before she could finish, a tall man in a gray suit stepped off the elevator, moving fast. His silver hair caught the light, and his tie probably cost more than Naomi's whole wardrobe. He stopped when he saw the little girl clutching a scuffed pink backpack. "Who's this?" he asked. His voice was smooth, but tired. "She says she found your wallet, sir," the receptionist said. Elliot Harrington blinked, then reached into his pocket and froze. "Well, I'll be—" He turned to Naomi. "You found it?" Naomi nodded. "At the bus stop on Baker Street." He looked at her for a long moment, eyes narrowing slightly as if he couldn't quite believe it. Then he crouched down so they were eye level. "Do you know how much money was in there?" Naomi hesitated. "A lot. Why didn't you keep it?" Her answer came soft but steady. "'Cause it wasn't mine." The man stared at her, something flickering behind his eyes. Surprise, maybe shame, maybe something else. "Come with me," he said finally. "Just for a minute." Naomi glanced at the receptionist, who gave her a small nod. "It's okay, sweetheart." They rode the elevator up to the top floor in silence. Naomi watched the numbers climb higher and higher until her ears popped. When the doors opened, she stepped into a space that didn't look real. Tall windows, white couches, paintings that didn't make sense but probably cost a fortune. Mr. Harrington walked to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a small black checkbook. "How much do you think your honesty is worth?" he asked. Naomi frowned. "I don't think it works like that." He smiled just a little. "Maybe not to you." He began writing anyway. Naomi's stomach knotted. "Please don't," she said quickly. "I didn't come for that." Elliot paused, pen hovering. "Then why did you come?" "To give it back." "That's all." The room went still. For the first time in a long time, Elliot Harrington didn't know what to say. He folded the checkbook closed, leaned back, and really looked at her. This small black girl with bright eyes and a backpack held together by a safety pin. "What's your name?" "Naomi Brooks." He nodded slowly. "Naomi Brooks," he repeated as if memorizing it. "Would your parents be all right with you taking a short ride home in my car? I'd like to thank them properly." Naomi's eyes widened. "You mean meet my mama?" "Yes," he said, smiling faintly. "If that's all right." She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but we don't live in a fancy place like this." "I've seen fancy," he said quietly. "I could use a little real." They rode the elevator back down. Outside, a sleek black car waited at the curb. The driver held the door open, looking just as surprised as Naomi felt. As they pulled away from downtown, the glass towers gave way to cracked sidewalks and corner stores. Naomi sat tall, pointing out turns, until they stopped in front of a faded brick apartment building. The front door opened, and Tasha Brooks stepped outside. Her uniform still on, hair pulled into a bun, eyes sharp and tired. When she saw the car, she froze. Naomi jumped out. "Mama, I gave the wallet back." "This is the man who lost it." Tasha blinked. "You what?" Elliot stepped out, extending a hand. "Ma'am, I owe your daughter more than I can say." Tasha looked him up and down, suspicion flashing across her face. "Is this some kind of joke?" "No, ma'am," he said softly. "She did something extraordinary." Naomi held up her hands, talking fast. "He dropped his wallet. It had a lot of money, Mama, but I gave it back. I took the bus all the way downtown." Tasha's knees nearly gave out. "Lord have mercy." She pulled Naomi close. "Baby, you scared me half to death," Naomi whispered. "I just wanted to do what you'd do." Elliot watched them, something in his chest shifting. For years, his life had been nothing but numbers. Stocks, buildings, investments. But standing there on that cracked sidewalk, he felt something money couldn't buy. Truth. He cleared his throat. "Miss Brooks, I'd like to talk with you, if you'd let me. Maybe about work, or a way to say thank you properly." Tasha frowned. "You don't owe us anything, Mr. Harrington." He smiled, almost wistfully. "Then maybe I owe myself the chance to do something good." Behind them, the summer heat shimmered on the pavement. Naomi looked between her mama and the man in the suit, not knowing that this moment, the one that began with a lost wallet, was about to change all of their lives. The next morning, the sun crept through the blinds of the Brooks apartment, painting gold stripes across the worn kitchen table. Tasha sat there in her work uniform, elbows on the wood, staring at a business card resting between her fingers. Elliot Harrington. Harrington Skyline Group. She'd barely slept. The man had left that card after he'd driven Naomi home, said he'd call in the morning, said he had an idea. And now, right on cue, the phone rang. Tasha picked it up, her voice still cautious. "Hello? Miss Brooks?" The voice was calm, polite. "It's Elliot Harrington. I hope I'm not disturbing you." She glanced at the clock. "It's fine. I was up anyway." "I was serious about what I said yesterday," he continued. "Would you come by my office this afternoon? I'd like to discuss something that could help us both." Tasha frowned. "Help you?" "Yes, and help you too." There was something in his tone, earnest, maybe even humble, that made her pause. "All right," she said slowly, "but I don't take handouts." "I wouldn't dream of offering one," he said. 1 o'clock? She hesitated, then nodded. "We'll be there." By early afternoon, Naomi was skipping beside her mama through the same glass doors as yesterday, her hair tied with 2 bright yellow ribbons. The receptionist smiled when she saw them. "Good afternoon, Miss Brooks. Mr. Harrington's expecting you." Tasha adjusted her purse strap, nerves fluttering in her stomach. "Come on, baby." Upstairs, Elliot's office looked less intimidating in daylight. He was standing by the window, jacket off, sleeves rolled up. A pot of coffee sat on the table beside a stack of papers. "Miss Brooks, Naomi," he said warmly. "I'm so glad you came," Tasha nodded. "You said you had an idea." "I do." He gestured toward a chair. "Please, sit." They did. Naomi's feet swung a few inches above the floor. Elliot leaned forward. "Naomi reminded me of something yesterday, something I'd forgotten. Integrity. Kindness without an angle. That kind of honesty deserves more than a thank you. It deserves opportunity." Tasha folded her arms. "Go on." "I own several properties around the city," he said. "One of them, the Skylark Hotel, is struggling. We've had problems with staff turnover, management that doesn't connect with the people working the floor. I need someone who understands real work and real people." She blinked. "You want me to run your hotel?" "Not run it. Help me fix it," he smiled. "You've spent years making things run smoothly on minimum wage. I need that kind of sense. Someone who sees what's missing before it breaks." Tasha sat back, stunned. "Mr. Harrington, I make fries and mop floors. I don't know the first thing about hotels." He chuckled softly. "You know about hard work and pride and treating people right. The rest I can teach." She looked down at her hands. "Why me?" He was quiet for a long time before answering. "Because your daughter did something rare. And I realized children don't learn values like that by accident." The room filled with silence. Naomi fidgeted in her chair, glancing between them. "Mama's real good at helping people," she said shyly. Elliot smiled. "I can tell." Tasha exhaled slowly. "All right," she said finally. "I'll come look at it. But I'm not promising anything. That's all I ask," he said. That afternoon, they drove to the edge of downtown where the Skylark stood, a once grand hotel now wearing its age like an old coat. The paint was peeling, a flickering sign hung above the doors, and a tired clerk behind the counter didn't even look up when they entered. "This place has history," Elliot said, his voice soft. "Used to be the pride of the city." Tasha walked through the lobby, her eyes sharp. The floors were scuffed. The flowers in the vase were plastic and dusty. The workers moved like ghosts. "Lord," she murmured, "they don't even smile at guests." Elliot shook his head. "They don't have anyone to show them how." Tasha turned to him, one eyebrow raised. "And you think I can?" "I think you already have," he said, glancing at Naomi. For the first time, Tasha laughed. A real laugh, low and warm. "You don't know what you're asking for." "Oh, I think I do," he said. "And I'm asking anyway." By the end of the week, Tasha Brooks was standing behind the front desk of the Skylark Hotel with a new name badge pinned to her chest. Guest Relations Manager. She didn't quite believe it until she saw Naomi beaming at her from the lobby couch. That night, when they got home, Tasha sat at the table, her uniform folded neatly beside her, replaced by something new. A blouse. A sense of hope. Naomi curled up beside her. "Mama," she whispered, "you think that man's lonely?" Tasha looked toward the window where the city lights blinked like faraway stars. "Maybe," she said. "But maybe he just found his way back to people." Naomi smiled sleepily. "Like you found your way to that hotel?" Tasha brushed a hand over her daughter's curls. "No, baby," she said softly. "You found it. You just didn't know it." And somewhere across town, in a quiet penthouse office, Elliot Harrington poured himself a cup of coffee and stared out at the same city, wondering when exactly a little girl with braids and a safety pin had managed to open a door in his heart he'd thought was locked forever. By autumn, the Skylark Hotel had begun to change, not because of new paint or money, though both came in time, but because of something smaller, warmer, steadier. Every morning, guests were greeted by the scent of fresh coffee and the sound of laughter echoing from the front desk. Tasha Brooks had brought life back into the place. She treated the staff like family, called them by name, asked about their kids, their mamas, their worries. When someone made a mistake, she didn't scold. She taught. When someone did well, she clapped her hands and said, "Now that's how we do it." The workers smiled again. Guests started leaving good reviews, and the hotel, once fading, began to shine. Elliot watched it all quietly from his office upstairs. He'd never seen numbers rise because of something that couldn't be measured on a chart. He'd visit the lobby, watch Tasha work, and wonder how someone with so little could make others feel like they had everything. One afternoon, he found himself downstairs, standing near the front desk. Naomi was there too, curled in one of the lobby chairs doing homework. Her yellow ribbons had become her trademark, bright and proud. Elliot smiled. "How's school, Miss Naomi?" She looked up. "Good, we're reading Charlotte's Web. It's kinda sad, though." He chuckled. "Sometimes the sad stories are the ones that stay with us." Naomi tilted her head. "You look sad sometimes, too." He froze for a second. "Do I?" She nodded. "You smile with your mouth, not your eyes." The honesty hit him like a mirror he hadn't meant to look into. Elliot knelt down beside her chair. "You're very observant. Mama says people hide what hurts," Naomi said simply. "But sometimes, if you look close, you can still see it." He felt something tighten in his chest. He hadn't spoken to his own daughter, Rebecca, in over 5 years. Not since the argument that ended with slammed doors and silence that stretched like an ocean between them. He swallowed. "You're a wise little girl," Naomi shrugged. "Mama says wisdom just means you've been paying attention." He smiled softly. "Your mama's right." That evening, Tasha joined him in the office. "You wanted to see me?" "Yes," he said, gesturing to a chair. "You've done remarkable work here. The staff respects you. The guests notice. The hotel's finally turning a profit again," she smiled. "All I did was listen to people. They just needed to feel seen. That's not all, Miss Brooks." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "You've reminded me that leadership isn't about control. It's about care." She tilted her head. "That sounds like something you just learned." He laughed softly. "It is." Tasha's gaze softened. "You ever talk to your family, Mr. Harrington?" The question caught him off guard. "No, not lately," she nodded slowly. "Maybe you should. Money can fix a roof, but it can't fix a heart." He looked down at his desk, her words echoing. That night, Elliot sat alone in his penthouse, city lights glowing beyond the glass. He pulled an old photo from his desk drawer. A younger version of himself beside a teenage girl with wild curls and a radiant grin. His daughter, Rebecca. He hadn't realized how much he missed her voice until the silence hurt. Before he could talk himself out of it, he picked up his phone and dialed the number he'd memorized but never used. It rang twice. Then, a cautious voice. "Hello?" He almost hung up. Then, Becca, it's Dad. A pause. A breath. Dad? Yes, I should have called a long time ago. Another pause. Softer this time. You okay? He closed his eyes. I think I'm getting there. And for the first time in years, they talked. Not about business or old mistakes, but about small things. Weather, memories, the kind of things that stitch a broken bridge back together. Weeks later, Rebecca walked into the Skylark. Elliot stood by the door, nervous as a schoolboy. When he saw her, older, stronger, with that same grin, something inside him gave way. You look good, Dad, she said quietly. He smiled. So do you. Then, over Rebecca's shoulder, he saw Naomi and Tasha standing behind the front desk, watching. He nodded to them. A silent thank you. Because sometimes it takes a child's honesty and a mother's grace to remind a man with everything that he once had, nothing that truly mattered. That evening, the hotel glowed brighter than it ever had. Guests checked in with smiles. Staff laughed behind the counter. And Elliot Harrington stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching it all unfold. Looks like you found your happy ending, Tasha said, stepping beside him. He shook his head, smiling. No, I just found my beginning again. Winter came gently that year, with soft rain and clear skies. The Skylark Hotel stood bright against the gray, windows warm, laughter echoing through the lobby. Naomi had grown a little taller, her braids longer, her smile wider. Most afternoons, she'd sit in a quiet corner with her books while her mama worked the front desk, waving to guests as if they were old friends. And Elliot, once a man of marble and silence, had changed too. He stopped walking with his phone glued to his hand. He started learning people's names. Sometimes he'd grab a coffee from the lobby just to sit and talk to the staff. Not as their boss, but as a man trying to remember what it meant to belong. One chilly afternoon, Naomi ran into his office clutching a handmade card. "Mr. Harrington," she said breathlessly. He looked up from a file, smiling. "What's this?" She placed it on his desk, construction paper folded unevenly, covered in purple crayon. In the center, in wobbly handwriting, it read, "Thank you for seeing us." He blinked, touched. "Naomi, you didn't have to. Mama says sometimes people just need to be told they're seen." He sat back, heart tight. "Your mama's right again," Naomi beamed. "She usually is." They both laughed. That evening, Elliot stopped by the front desk before heading out. Tasha was helping a guest check in, calm and graceful as ever. When she finished, he said quietly, "You've built something beautiful here." She smiled. "We did. You gave me a chance. I just watered the ground." He nodded. "I think you've done more than that." She tilted her head. "You ever think maybe God dropped that wallet on purpose?" Elliot chuckled softly. "You mean to teach an old fool what generosity looks like?" "To remind you that money ain't the only kind of wealth," she said, eyes kind. He nodded, voice low. "Then I'm richer than I've ever been." Months passed. The hotel flourished. And one spring morning, a small ceremony took place in the lobby. A new brass plaque gleamed near the entrance. It read, "The Naomi Brooks Scholarship Fund, for children who choose integrity." When the crowd applauded, Naomi turned pink and tried to hide behind her mama's leg. Elliot bent down and whispered, "You earned this, kiddo." "You reminded me what matters," she whispered back. "I just did what Mama said." He smiled. "And the world's better for it." Later that evening, after the guests had gone and the lights dimmed, Tasha locked the doors. Naomi held her hand as they stepped out into the quiet street. The city buzzed in the distance, a hum of life, of traffic, of stories still being written. Naomi looked up. "Mama, you think people remember when you do something good?" Tasha smiled. "Maybe not always, but the good remembers you. It finds its way back." Naomi thought about that, then nodded, satisfied. Then I guess we're going to be remembered a long time. Her mama squeezed her hand. I reckon so. Across town, in a penthouse that no longer felt quite so empty, Elliot Harrington stood by his window watching the city lights flicker. On his desk sat the purple crayon card, framed in glass. He touched it gently and smiled. A little girl's honesty, a mother's strength, and a lost wallet that somehow found its way to his heart. Sometimes the smallest acts make the loudest echoes. And sometimes, if you're lucky, those echoes sound a lot like grace.